All right. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are across the world. Welcome to another edition of Ask Me Anything or Ask Kristen Anything about gentrification. It is kind of a play on the Reddit words. For those of you who want to ask me a question, I'm going to go ahead and copy the link to the StreamYard, and I think this will get you into this room. If you want to ask me a question, I can pull it up on the screen. Of course, go and listen to the podcast if you haven't already. I am going to at least put in my comments here the link to this. It might be a little meta, but it'll go out to, yes. There you go. That is on YouTube. I see that it's posted on Facebook. And yeah, if you want to ask me a question, you want it up on the screen, let me know. Hello to everybody. I see this coming into the StreamYard room. If you're over here on me vertical, I'm gonna try to go to my Instagram in Safari. There might be some feedback momentarily, but I do want you all to have a chance to come and join me on the horizontal feed, ask any questions. I do want to say hello to you. I can't exactly wave to you. Got, as you see, I am in our apartment's office. We have like many of these big buildings. We actually do have this space, but with my still taking COVID mitigations, of course, right now with pollen season, I'm allergic to everything in the air. I have this here to kind of help me with being able to kind of do more things outside of my apartment. And yeah, we do have this resource here. We do have these spaces. And of course, this week's episode of the podcast, I really talked about what it's like to live in these kinds of spaces. All right. I see that I'm live here now. I'm actually on my computer. I'm going to switch to my Chris Pattern account so I can kind of be in here without being in here. So I can see you all. I can at least see who's here. I can wave to you all and I can drop in the comments the StreamYard link. And then if you've already got questions coming up, go ahead questions into the comment areas. Once again, I'll also pull up Twitter. It's for, you know me, it's the site formerly known as. So I'm just going to pop over here to make sure those of you who might magically be watching me over here for this Ask Kristen Anything about gentrification, you have what you need. Some of you I know on Twitter earlier, I was watching the rally for Housing Not Handcuffs. Very, very important thing. So if you're watching that, I'm not mad at you. This will be here. This will be streaming live, but you want to talk directly to me right now and stream. I'm right here. So let's see, save info. But yeah, I hope everybody is doing relatively well. All right, so now I am coming into my live as Chris Pattern. So I should be able to see, okay, all right, let's see. All right, now I can see that I'll try to talk to this camera a little bit, but of course the main camera. And in fact, I think I'm gonna adjust myself. So, okay, kind of like last week, I can kind of see y'all now. And yeah, let me drop a link to the StreamYard in this spot here. That way, and I'll just have the camera over here. I'll be chatting with you. I'll occasionally look to this side, but I you'll be able to join me on StreamYard where I can see everybody. And of course, all my LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, in the StreamYard portal, go ahead and get those questions up on the screen. Or even if you don't have a question today, if you have any comments, if you have any things you want to share, if you're enjoying the podcast, if you want more information about the podcast and what we're doing and what the plan is, I'll share some of that. But the game plan is every Monday I'll come to you live, whether I'm in the apartment or like today, I'm actually in our office. I'm trying to trick trick some of the cameras here. Those of you on Instagram can kind of clearly see that, I've got this vista behind me and it is really dope. That's one thing I want to make clear. Those of you who are watching live, I would love to come and see y'all. I would love to be in person with y'all, but I have to carry this around with me. And for those of you who aren't familiar with these are on that other site that starts with an A. That's where I also have to order my mask from now. I know the irony, but this lets you be handheld. It is a HEPA filter. They do sell refills of this HEPA filter. And honestly, it smells good. Like if you are in an environment, and of course, it's ironic. Today is Earth Day, and I'll talk a little bit about that as well if I don't see any questions come through. But yeah, this air purifier helps me do a lot of things. It helped me fly across the country a few weeks ago. It helped me to be able to, I have several in our home. Of course, I always had seasonal allergies to the tree pollen, to the flower pollen. And of course, I live in the South and I love my dogwoods. I love my magnolias. I love everything. I love all of our foliage. And of course, here in DC, we just got out of cherry blossom season. They're right behind my head here for those of you who can kind of see through the sun. But if you know exactly where I'm sitting, we're right here, not far off the National Mall, and they've passed peak bloom. Most of them now no longer have that pink tinge, no longer have the flowers. They are now moved on to like their greenery, but there's some other stuff, dogwoods. I saw those this morning walking around. I may post some of that on some of my accounts. We have the magnolia trees, all of our little flowering plants that are kind of in the ground, your tulips, your marigolds, which are great for mosquitoes, or as we say in North Carolina, mosquitoes. Like they're great for those things, and you don't have to get bitten. Especially this, it's not just you get bitten; it's an annoyance. Be mindful. Blue Nile and the tiger mosquito is real. He's out here. Be careful. Be careful with yourselves. Some of that. Hopefully, that's not why sometimes I'm chronically fatigued, but I know for a lot of people that is the case. So yes, let me go ahead and get this StreamYard link into my IG live. So those of y'all who are on the vertical stream, if you want to ask me a question and make sure I can see it, I can put it over there for y'all. All right, great. Let's see. Okay, now it's telling me I have to, I can't, oh, all right, that should be in the comments there under my Chris Pattern account. And so I'm gonna try to just put this one here so I can kind of at least see you, or you can see me and see, but I make apologies if the Instagram feed is looking a little wild. I did put in the comments there, and I'm gonna try to, well, I can't pin it if I'm not in the live as myself. So definitely working on the technical difficulties now. Yes, I'm aware that StreamYard has now created a capability for you to stream directly to Instagram and put things on the screen, kind of like if you're watching the vertical feed. I have at Black Urbanist, I have host of Defying Gentrification podcast. And actually, I'm gonna probably tilt myself a little bit so that, let's see, there's still me. It's a new room. Oh, that's nice. You can see a little in DC this morning. And then, of course, I do have a light over my head so you can see me. Hopefully, you all can hear me. But it's great to have all 24 of you all who have joined me today. Please send me any comments and questions so I can address them. I am definitely checking some of my other platforms. And for those of you who need captioning, I know that YouTube, when you watch this back, it should caption the video. Likewise, with Apple is claiming that they are transcripting the podcast. Now, as somebody who's involved in disability justice, I know not to just trust these platforms. These platforms can be shaky when it comes to making sure things are together. So that is one concern that's been raised. I do plan on making sure that you all can do that. So that's number one thing. While I wait for you all to ask or should send anything over, I'll just talk about today's Earth Day. It has been Earth Month, and I'm really glad to see that Earth Month has expanded. It absolutely had needed to expand. I remember the first time I celebrated Earth Day as a elementary school student in the early 90s. Of course, this was the era, and honestly, it's heartbreaking because, we were told that we would not have a rainforest and we would not have an ozone layer. And I truly do think some of that is true. We still don't have there has been rainforest conservation in the last 30 years. It's not as bad as it could be, but there is still damage. There's I forget to wear my sunscreen. If you see me in person, I've got my freckly. Yes, yes. Happy Earth Day and Earth Month, and I'm doing better with sunscreen. I want to shout out the owners of Black Girl Sunscreen. This is something that's accessible. You can either Google Black Girl Sunscreen. Tell me like in the comments, and I know my Instagrammers, I'm sure you probably have used Black Girl Sunscreen and can vouch for it. But yeah, Black Girl Sunscreen, it's a great resource for those of us who are melanated. And there's a lot of other black owned and like black centering sunscreen brands. So yes, even when you're my complexion, you do need sunscreen. You do need to be like making sure your skin is the outer layer. Skin cancers are rising. One of the things that's kind of showing up in those of us who are having post-COVID complications is cancers. So take care of yourselves, take care of your outer membrane. And another thing, I know it's kind of cliche to tell people to touch grass, but this is a great day to kind of figure out like what is the ground like. Les and I took a walk to Safeway earlier this morning. Usually with me having all these precautions, and it's easy for me to just, and since I work here in this building and I'm at home, it's easy for me to just get locked in the house, even on a beautiful day like today that we have out here in DC, and not go outside. But that and the other thing is something else that keeps me home a lot, and I want to take this opportunity to honor those who are standing at the steps of the Supreme Court right now, right as we speak. I was watching a little bit of the Housing Not Handcuffs rally, and I know I think there's a plan to march a little bit as well. And basically, we're sitting with a Supreme Court case that could criminalize homelessness, not just in the area that it's observing, but potentially nationwide. Basically, they're trying to argue that it's not a cruel and unusual punishment to punish people for being homeless. And considering that right now that it is unaffordable for anybody on a minimum wage, honestly, right now, nobody can get a 2-bedroom apartment. So if you have a child and you're working a minimum wage job, you can just kind of say goodbye to like any corporate buildings, because corporate buildings are the main ones that are saying no to people that are just have minimum wage jobs. They're using all the little things like the the rent cafe or the rent path, or it's the thing here in DC. Our attorney general has sued this company for inflating our rents. And yes, this is one of these buildings. I'll be very transparent about that. We were very fortunate to be able to use the District of Columbia's inclusionary zoning provision, and we were able to, we had a good year. But I'm also going to address that, because for those of you who read the email from last night, and yes, I'm bringing back my Sunday emails. You're going to get a lot of crafting in that. Speaking of crafting, I actually have my iPad case here. I haven't actually showcased this one. I did actually finish this in 2023 as well, but my little jacket that I had on, that was my first wearable of the year. So those of you all who are here, who came for the urbanism and staying for the craft, here's some craft for you. But back to just the nature of how difficult it is to get housing here. So I 100% believe that it was, less in considering her position, that helped. And then of course we just had the numbers last year. I had a good year, and in the early part of last year, it wasn't like people were talking the whole, we're reducing journalism budgets and we're reducing media budgets and we're reducing our grant making in certain areas, and that's happened. One other thing I want to address here on the live stream this morning, for those of you who haven't read the email, and in fact, I'm gonna drop the email link into your chat window, because I do have it on the blackurbanist.com. You can still absolutely go to the blackurbanist.com. I don't use the front page as much, but I know I've heard that some people are still just typing in whatever.com. And if that's of interest to you, if you would like to just for me to just update you or update the front page, like when you come to, because right now you come to the blackurbanist.com. And in fact, I think I'm in the feed where I can put it up. My Instagram folks won't see this. I'll make sure you can always go to the links in the bio. The blackurbanist.com is always there, and there's always a link to my newsletter in my bio and in my stories. And there is a highlighted story with my newsletter that goes directly to the Substack. I do kind of write directly for Substack and LinkedIn because I know those are the platforms where folks tend to be congregating the most. I know many of you here are here today on LinkedIn, so shout out to my LinkedIn folks. Uh, but LinkedIn and Substack and Patreon have that newsletter embedded. It comes as part of being part of those communities or using those platforms to read me. If you subscribe on LinkedIn and Substack, it goes directly into your email box. Now, I know email boxes are crowded, especially many of you all who are coming, who are here in Eastern Time with me here in DC. Y'all are, we have absolutely come right on back to our emailing and our 5:30, 6:30 in the morning daily emails. I know many of you all are waiting for us and itching for us when Breakfast Links hits. So I know that culture is back. So definitely the Black Urbanists, you can still go to the blackurbanist.com and click on read newsletter. For those of you looking for the podcast, I need to kind of put the new podcast on the blackurbanist.com/podcast. I haven't gotten around to that. I've been mainly focusing on these platforms that I know people are reading and watching on. And of course, I'm doing these live streams on Mondays because, yeah, this is another opportunity for me to reach y'all. I'm still having some technical difficulties getting the full podcast stream on YouTube the way that I like. But I did do a live interview for this week's podcast. So I'm going to try to edit some things, do my hot topics early, splice some things together, get a sense of how to edit everything. And that way you'll have that available for you. And if you're like me and you have YouTube Premium, you can just turn me on that way. I know some of y'all are Spotify folks. I'm definitely there. And I absolutely love how it's showing up on Spotify, how it's picking out the colors of the logo, how it's captured in, how it just goes straight from episode to episode. And by the way, we are now up to episode 4. So if you're new to me podcasting, if you're like, oh gosh, Kristen, you're doing a lot of new things, you're back to essays on Sundays and you're going live on Mondays. And then I see you in your inbox on Friday with something talking about a podcast about the urban renewal, the gentrification pipeline. Yes, that is what we're doing here. Under this Kristen Jeffers Media banner. So some more BTS behind the scenes for me. So obviously, it's just me. As many of you have known, I'm the one, I'm putting together all this technology. I'm editing it. I do work from home. We do have this, in our new building, we have this lovely office room and that I can reserve. And so I decided to reserve it today and try it out. Use my little air purifier down here so I can have a little maskless moment so you all can see me. Because y'all know that's rare. If you know me in real life, y'all know that's rare that you see me. You only really see this half. So if you see me, if you've been curious, if you want to get to know me, this is kind of one of the ways to do it. And yes, I will, because this is a warm season and this is, easy for me to ventilate, easier for us to ventilate rooms. I'm definitely working on opportunities to do that and model COVID safety. There's some conversations that I'm having with some folks about events and lunch and learns. And yeah, if you're very curious about what it means right now to continue to take those kinds of precautions and how disability justice works into urbanism, you definitely want to be on the lookout for when I do open up the Defying Gentrification Fellowship again. I know in lieu of opening up that class, I decided to do these live streams on Mondays just to get the numbers up. I realized that, yeah, I know a lot of you all have been sharing it. I appreciate you all for sharing it. But I realized not enough people know what I'm trying to do here. And of course, I need to grow my team, grow my network. So that's why we put a pause on the class for a moment. But I will be bringing it back, and I'm having conversations with a couple of organizations, and I'm happy to have a conversation with your organization if you want the class. I will be formatting and releasing the syllabus at a glance for folks that people will be able to find at all of my web platforms. I do have the definegentrification.com. I have purchased it. I'm working on building it. WordPress is my primary website builder and has been since day one, way back in like 2009 when I created my adult website, as it were. When I first bought KristenJeffers.com way back in 2009, I used the WordPress.com and I bought the domain. Then over time, being active in the WordPress community and having a little bit of interest in coding. And of course, this was 2009, 2010. For those of you who were not adults yet or out in the world, like trying to do things professionally, there was a lot of emphasis back then on being able to code. There was a lot of emphasis then on being able to do everything. Like you had to email and you had to be on all the social networks. And at the time, Facebook had just gone open access and Twitter was growing. And then we had MySpace was still kind of like lingering around. Let's see if I can, that like was kind of helping me. But okay, I'll sit here. I'll sit here at least. And I know my Instagram posts, the lighting hasn't been an issue. It's been more of, and I do apologize for this. What I'll probably do next time is, I was hoping to get a little bit of background, a little bit of, so let me actually pivot. For those of you all who are light sensitive, I'm one of y'all. So let me try to get us some better lighting here. Yeah, that's a little bit better. It's a little bit less of a glare. And of course, feel free, y'all, please do share your accessibility needs. That's very important. That's not accessibility is not a privilege. It is a human right. Okay, good. I can see, I can see all of y'all on adjusting the screen so I can see that y'all can see me. And yeah, it's not a privilege. It's a right, just like housing is a right. And I know for a lot of y'all who are in this and you're thinking about the numbers, that is something that'll be a future episode. I will be having a lot of housing justice folks come on. I'll be having a lot of disability justice folks come on the podcast. You're gonna hear from some people I'm casting an even broader net this time with this new podcast. I really enjoy talking to people, and I've really missed that through this pandemic period. And so I'm really going to do my best to try to myself model accessibility, model mobility, model that no, it's not okay to just lock up disabled people. It's not okay. And it's just like, we really don't need no prisons no more either. Like the abolition movement that we are having for specifically Black and brown men, trans folks that are locked up in prisons, still folks that are using, now that cannabis is legal in many places and is on its way to being completely legal in the United States across the board. But of course we have strains that are legal now. We just had the cannabis festival here in DC. Just all these folks that are in prison, all these prison schemes, all of that just needs to end. Just like I'm trying to end gentrification schemes, abolition is of course extending to the prisons, extending to our social service corps when we're having, there's a lot of just terrible stuff going on, and a lot of us who are post-COVID in the sense that we've had it and we have lingering issues. Some of us knew that based on what was being told and talked about what was going on with folks with COVID, even with vaccination, even with mitigation, that there was a lot of rough stuff going on. So I'm just thankful. Getting back to thinking about that today, they can make it a criminal act to be homeless in many jurisdictions in the United States. Just like abortion is no longer a human right in every United State, every state. So many states have banned gender expression. We're banning books again. Where it's too expensive to get housing. You can't house your whole family and have enough room there. All these things are being created, and many of you all listening to me are in those positions of power. So as usual, as I like to do, as I did on the podcast, specifically, now that message was specifically for Black women, Black trans men, Black non-binary folks, Black straight gay, or not straight, Black cis rather, gay men, as well as Black straight men. Now Black straight men, yeah, of course, don't have us out here doing this. Like, step in the gap, stand in the gap, y'all. Us, we all, many of us, and of course, if you've been on social media all weekend, if you stay on like Black Twitter, and yes, I still say Black Twitter, if you've been in those circles, you'll know that there's been a lot of debate over what's acceptable for people to endure in their homes, in their houses, specifically around several Black male rappers and R&B singers and celebrities, and a very notable Black female R&B artist that I do enjoy, but I did not enjoy reading her thoughts. Now, this is a known thing. And yes, I will say, as a elder millennial, if you go to the KristenEJeffers.com site, I'll share my birthday proudly. I'm very proud and excited to be almost 40. I mean, it's baffling sometimes. It's something I have to really think about, and as someone who considers themselves a young elder, and especially even like a elder, when we think about non-binary queer communities, even Black communities, because we're losing so many people again now in their 20s and 30s. We This work has to look and reflect the needs and the concerns of everybody. Like, doing community work and it's not reflecting people, that's just not going to work out. I want to just take a moment. Those of you who are streaming on Instagram, I'm sorry, I have my camera facing me. I can't actually see your comments and questions and concerns today. I'm charging my iPad so I can try to do that now that I have juice. So I'm going to check on y'all over here on Instagram. So apologies if there's any feedback. And yeah, for those of you who've been watching and who normally watch me, I am in my apartment's kind of club room office space. We have a little conference room in here. For all these, I'm gonna tell you, if you happen to luck out and get in one of these buildings, uh-oh, I went dark. Okay, I'm back. All would need resources and need these kind of spaces, and they don't have them, and they're not there for people. It's hurtful. It's really hurtful. Like, I'm hurt so many times just hearing and seeing what's going on in the world. Let's see here. Hopefully, me opening my Instagram on my um I'll just keep talking, but I will say the best way to kind of catch me on these Ask Me Anything lives is to go to that StreamYard link that is in the comments of the live on Instagram. Uh, and of course, be on my email list, so you can come over here and you can be inside the StreamYard window and kind of block out all of the noise. Or YouTube. YouTube's a great place to watch these. Of course, yeah, I'm still on Twitter, X, whatever that thing is called now, and of course LinkedIn. I have no problems bringing all of this to LinkedIn. Um, Trying to think what else did I want to mention today. And of course, you can still ask me any questions. You can still send me any comments. Let me see if, wow, even Instagram's like, yeah, keep up with a smaller group of friends. I mean, I'm kind of doing that here on with Chris Pattern. And yes, I will talk a little bit there about like the crafting process. So yeah, I've been just like I've been celebrating Earth Day since I was in elementary school. Yes, elder millennial. We've been having, we had the owl, we had all the videos about the rainforest going away, the ozone layer going away. We were trying to recycle. Of course, nobody told us that those numbers on the recycling cans, and this may be new information for you as well. The numbers on that say the two that are circuit and the like the arrows, that was originally just like an awareness. It didn't originally have bearing, and actually, that's just telling you what kind of plastic you are working with. So, because I'm thinking, let's see, this is a plastic piece here. There's a plastic container around here. Yeah, this doesn't even have um it has the voltage, it has what kind of battery it is, it has that it's made in China, it has the EPA regulation since it's still sold here in the States, but it does not actually have anything related to how to recycle it. So just and I'm looking at my phone case. That's a plastic. Like I'm looking at a lot of plastic things. Now, this is an actual wooden table because they will give us real stuff in these kinds of buildings. So I'm knocking on wood that when the time comes and it's time for me to recycle things, I can recycle things. Once again, if you're just joining, this is Ask Kristen Anything. If you want to ask me a question and make sure I can see it, okay, I can finally see. I'm coming in. Let's see. Of course, I'm working with, okay, it looks like nobody is using Instagram, but it is here for you. And all of you all are following directions and you're here on the horizontal. So I'm just going to work with that. But just if anybody pops into Instagram, just know that the best place to kind of get your questions answered, as well as being able to see anybody else's comments, seeing anything. I might not use Instagram next week or even try to do that, but I do want you to be aware that we're doing this and we're over here on LinkedIn, my Black Urbanist Facebook page and group. You can sign up for StreamYard, and that's a guarantee that your question will be answered. YouTube, and then I will be putting this on Patreon kind of after the fact, but pretty soon the Patreon will be more integrated. Likewise, I will be starting to post these. I'll be posting an email recap of this. I forgot to turn on my otter today. So once again, I apologize that this conversation isn't gonna be transcribed, but that will be something that will happen next week. Also, I'll let y'all know if I decide not to go live on Monday or if I have technical difficulties. I'll definitely make sure y'all know that. But that's why the podcast exists. So for those of you who haven't had a chance to read my latest email, many of you have because you're here and you're aware of it. And I'm excited about that. But this week, I'm bringing back my Sunday essays. And so I talked about just what I've been going through. And maybe some of y'all are here because you think I'm going to spill a lot of tea. Um, Really, the only tea that I have to spill is that I I don't have that capability to one track mind and multitask in the way that I used to. Yeah, I'm doing. Yeah, I'm here. It looks like multiple platforms, but that's because StreamYard makes it easy. StreamYard is my personal AI assistant here. StreamYard, I can input my information, and then anything I want to put up on the screen, I can put up on the screen. Just like, let me go over here. I promised y'all a few moments ago my Sunday essay. So I'm going to pull that up for y'all, and I'm going to drop that link into the comments. And so wherever StreamYard automatically sends those comments, that's where they're going to go. And so I'm actually going to put this up on the screen. Yeah, so this is the latest newsletter. It has a link to the latest podcast episodes, as well as the RSS feed. For those of my old school podcast people who've been listening to podcasts since you had to have the RSS feed, since it's when it originated just on iTunes, because that's why we call them podcasts, because they're for iPods when we just had iPods. And I know they still sell the individual iPod, but I know a lot of folks just go ahead and get an iPhone because it's basically the same thing. It just has a phone connected to it. Plus, I have not seen where we have these 3-camera iPods, the way you have the 3-camera iPads and you have the 3-camera iPhones. And of course, I'm also not that person that's gonna update my phone and update my iPad every time I need to. This computer that I'm coming to you from is refurbished. Actually, this was a thrifted. I got this when I was living in Baltimore the first time. I got this from a friends having a little yard sale, a house sale. I've had this case for my iPad since I had my Samsung tablet, which I gifted to my mom. My mom has it in the screen crack, but whenever she's ready to use it again, we'll fire it up. But I think she's got a different tablet now. I think mom ended up replacing her tablet. Mom, you can tell me if you watch this. You can tell me what happened to that. And then I made this. Of course, this is actually Noro Yarns. It's a Japanese yarn company. My yarn folks know about this company, and you either love it or hate it. And I think with this one, I actually went to the Creative Reuse store in Alexandria, Upcycle Creative Reuse. I love my Creative Reuse stores. That's something else you can do here on this Earth Day. Those of you who are crafting and you want to get into it, and of course your kids expressing interest, or someone in your life is expressing interest in craft, and you got a few questions. Um, if you, yeah, thank you. It is, I love it. It was my one thing. Anita Morrison Matra on LinkedIn. Yes, the company, let me put that on the screen. What's the company of this? This is called Noro Yarns, and I'm actually going to put that link for my crafters. They are a legacy yarn company in Japan. And for those of you who are unfamiliar, yeah, these there's a lot of Japanese yarn supplies, clover hooks. Many of us use clover hooks and needles. Um, so that I'm putting up on the screen here, Noro Yarns. So yeah, this is the company that made the yarns. I'll leave that up on, yeah. I'll also in fact, let me also pull up the create upside of reuse. There is a list out here of all the creative reuse stores in your area. And I'm going to shout out the ones that I know of. I know for a fact Atlanta, Richmond, Greensboro, we consider goods in Greensboro. Baltimore's a Scrap B More, or Scrap Baltimore. I know there's one in Seattle. I know there's, and of course, Upcycle Creative Reuse, which is, well, that's the Nora link. Let me not put that up on the screen. That I'm gonna put up. And so if you just happen, if you have a person that's a fabric person in your life, but you're not that person, but you want to be responsible about recycling those things, stores like this are available to you to recycle your or if you bought yarn at the yarn store, you don't like it, it's not working out for you, or you've been gifting things in addition to like just regular private yarn swaps that happen in like group me groups or at the your public libraries. uh, these craft swaps, these are whole stores. There's a whole movement around creative reuse, which I think I'm gonna try to search for that right now. I always forget that I'm using Chrome because Chrome is compatible with StreamYard. Not that I'm excited about that today. Definitely in solidarity with all of the actions, the student actions. Of course, I haven't posted anything because, of course, any of you all who have seen some of my professional pictures know, yeah, that was when I was on Columbia, and the students invited me. So let that be the thing that you know about me and how I feel about these student demonstrations. I support these students 100%. I support the faculty that is supporting them. I do not support these administrations. And so I'm not surprised that it was just the students who invited me, somebody who was openly talking about the things that I talk about openly to campus, to their student group. And there's one picture where a man is looking at me like, why are you here? Like, and I think it was Les was taking pictures of me, the pictures that you've seen. Let's see, it looks like Silver Spring now has creative reuse that just got started. It's coming up on search, but if you search for the words, and I think I can put words on the screen for you all to just comment. Yeah, I think I can just put a comment up here. So search creative reuse, and let me just put that comment up on the screen here. Yeah, search for creative reuse for if you want to recycle. And this isn't just, this is anything that you might buy at like Home Goods, Michael's, Joann, anything that kind of would be sold at that store. And those of you who go to those stores know that they have everything from like school supplies. Oh yes, also Staples. Some of the things that you can buy at Staples can also be taken to the creative reuse in lieu of being taken to places like Savers, Goodwill, which may or may put those things on the shelves. Of course, I'm going to be getting into going to Goodwills and looking through the blankets, especially like our crocheted and quilted blankets. I like seeing what people do with the blankets and the quilts and everything, but I do know there are people that want those things intact. So I'm putting a bug in folks' ears. If you're looking for a way to impact your communities, if you're still looking for something to add to like your communities, main streets, look into the creative reuse movement. Reach out to the yarn groups. Come by the yarn stores, the local yarn stores in your communities. Also, that's something else you can search. I'm gonna put that comment on here. Search local yarn for connections to slow fashion. Um, and one of the reasons I got into slow fashion as an urbanist, and I know we're coming up on the hour, but I'll talk a little bit about this for the rest of the time we have together. One of the reasons I got into slow fashion as an urbanist is number one, if you are living in these newer gentrified developments, like I'm sitting in right now, if you're living in these new places, well, in the case of the one that I'm sitting in now, it replaced an attempt to try to create a shopping mall, an enclosed, the no windows around the walls, because of course now we live in an era where a lot of our like enclosed shopping malls are putting in facades. That's what that's called. For those of y'all who need to know the terminology, that's what it's called when they actually put businesses out front and they have the doors and the windows and you can see out front of the mall. That's it's called a facade. So we have those kind of like you see like when you go down like the downtowns, your traditional main streets where you walk in, you have a storefront and it's a big window like this and there's a big door. You can walk in and somebody may have painted something or they're hanging signs or they're hanging tapestries like this, larger ones, of course, of clothing. Your Old Town Alexandria's, your 8th Street Southeast, your Fells Points, you name it, the little the Avenue, both Georgia Avenue and DC, as well as Hampton and oh yes, and let me put up here Elizabeth Yao. Thank you so much for mentioning Austin Creative Reuse and Houston Art Asylum for the Texas folks. And of course, those of you all are in southern states, and it's really part of our culture, like to be doing yarn and fiber crafts. A lot of our creative reuse stores are great. I know for the Hampton Roads folks, they just put one in MacArthur Mall. That's probably the only thing that's left in there. I went in there with Les earlier last year, and it's it's definitely an adjustment. And yeah, malls are dying, but in this case, creative reuse is bringing back a use for this particular mall that was maybe probably ill built in the downtown area of Norfolk, Virginia. But I know for less, and any of you all who know your malls, some people have been circulating some Four Seasons Town Center ads from the 80s. The Christmas one, I especially remember. My Greensboro folks who are on here, you remember that ad. You know that ad. Like, maybe some of y'all don't want to go see Santa because going to see Santa sounded kind of sad. Let's be real. So there's and of course, I know Alexandria Lane, who of course grew up in Durham, North Carolina, grew up in Northgate and South Square, two malls that are completely dead, and now we just have streets at South Point. And then you have a lot of these malls have turned into power centers. That's what they call them kind of in the industry. The big box stores is what we kind of all commonly call them. Here in DC, Union Station was redeveloped to be more of a shopping mall, and it's been up and down. But stores are returning to Union Station. Some of the cafes and stuff have gone away, but some stores never left, hung in there, and it's not just McDonald's. There's still some other stores at Union Station in DC. Penn Station still has their Dunkin' Donuts and their gift shop, and they're doing their renovation. So more stuff's going to be at Penn Station in Baltimore. I know 40th Street Station in Philadelphia. Obviously, what's happening at Grand Central and the Monahan Train Depot. My Amtrak folks that might be listening, please put some chairs in there, like for mobility reasons. Let you know me. I believe that people can take care of themselves. People can figure out things for themselves. So yes, but back to just reclaiming my fiber. Like for me, the malls were closing, and then through this COVID period, especially after I got my first round of COVID shots, I noticed my body started changing shape. And yes, I've been more sedentary than I've ever been. When I first moved here to DC and the Baltimore region, I didn't have a personal vehicle. I was taking Ubers and Lyfts. And of course, I was taking Metro, the Baltimore subway, the light rail, walking. When I lived in Bolton Hill, I walked from there to the BCF office. When I lived in Parkview, when I worked in the Farragut, kind of that Farragut area, Farragut Square area in DC, I used to walk, a few extra blocks sometimes. Sometimes I would walk a few extra blocks and catch Metro at a different spot. Or I would, of course, I didn't live right off of like where the bus came. I lived off of Georgia Avenue. And so I would have to walk a few blocks to get back to my apartment at a time, my basement apartment. I would walk when I lived the second time around. I moved back to DC and I lived on Water Street. I would walk to Georgia Petworth Station. And now, of course, this trail, the part that still kind of looks more like the 1960s urban renewal, like now we're kind of moving into that era where mid-century is mid-century architecture done well, looks historic, looks beautiful, looks attractive. And yet even some of our new builds, our little industrial chic as or what is where, but just being able to walk these promenades and walk around and of course walk into shops and walk into storefronts. And yeah, for me, I have to get on Metro to go to, Metro. Of course, I'm a stop or two away from Pentagon City Mall, which is still very vibrant, but it's connected to the community. Like it has facades out front, it has storefronts, and then of course the little Pentagon Center. Of course, now we have that little ordering IKEA. It's not the same as the big one. Y'all know I love me the big one, even with their problems, and they do have problems. That's the other thing. As is. If you are an IKEA shopper and you haven't been checking out as is, number one, it's of course it's in every warehouse. But also as is, no, they're not paying me to say this, but as is has moved to online. So you can get your IKEA stuff as is. You can actually take your well-made, well put together IKEA furniture back to the store and they may put it up in as is. And of course, Facebook Marketplace. If you are not using Facebook Marketplace, and I know I was kind of late to Facebook Marketplace, that's a wonderful place to kind of find everything. Furniture, yarn supplies. You can find all these things and you can furnish your home. You can help other people get things. It's a wonderful kind of environment and mutual aid for people to kind of have for that's another way you can kind of honor Earth Day. Of course, all these petitions, of course, supporting the land justice movements, supporting Palestine, supporting Tigray, supporting Turtle Island, like right here. The folks that are at the Supreme Court this morning, the folks that have been on the ground in all of these places. And I really want to challenge us. And I know I can already tell you for this week's podcast, our guest is Derek. And then also I will be talking about the folks in Chinatown that have to get on a bus to go to a grocery store, Chinatown, DC, by the way, to go to a grocery store that has the things that are affordable and that they can use. Of course, they have of the cultural side and the commercial side of gentrification. And as I talked about last week in our last live, the small business anti-displacement initiative that the University of Maryland is doing, let me put the link back up on the screen. That's a good, if you are a small business who is in danger of displacement, and I know for many of you all are the ones that are doing that work to preserve communities, preserve actions, being a local presence in your communities, whether you're feeding people, whether you're providing clothing and things. those definitely reach out to this organization. I'm putting their link on the screen again, antidisplacement.org. If you are a business, now they're doing a lot of case studies and stuff, but there are resources there. If you are a business that wants to be part of your community, that wants to be part of slow fashion, reuse, mutual aid, uh, providing financing, being a community bank or credit union that's providing financing so that we can continue to finance our community resources. Those are, look into that. Take this Earth Day and Earth Month. Take all, every day is Earth Day. We don't, as I like to say on every platform, we only have one of them. Despite what our money is going to when we order stuff on Amazon and when to space exploration, which is worthy. Like a lot of cool things we found out about in space. But realistically, this is going to be our home and our planet. And the real big reason I really zeroed in on slow fashion and zero waste and textiles is seeing Accra, Ghana, and Chile, places that as someone who's I've been a Spanish student for over a decade, well, actually 2 decades now. That's the language I took the entire time I was in grade school and college. And I'm now using Duolingo to get myself conversational again and help me put words together and help me manage, the Southern accent and make it sound authentic and you can understand me. And then, of course, I am the descendant of the enslaved Africans. And thinking about that now, there are the colonialism that has happened on that continent. That's why I'm not that person that runs out to Apple every time we get a new phone. I'm going to use all these products until they break apart, and then that's when I'll replace them. And even then, I'll try to replace them with refurbished materials. Oh, and I realized I had left my watch upstairs. But either way, sometimes taking a break from having your time on you and having your watch on you. Plus, I did a little morning walk already, so I got my minutes for today. Since I got COVID, I haven't been keeping up with that as religiously, but yeah, just getting materials when you need them, taking care of things. I bought this sweatshirt. Not Aldi, Lidl had it. Now Lidl no longer is in Oxon Hill, Maryland, where we, as well as us, we're no longer in Oxon Hill, Maryland, but Lidl's also no longer there as well, and neither is Shoppers, which is whatever place. That was kind of a fast move, but for those of you all, and of course, Lidl and Aldi, even though the prices are lower, there's a reason for that. There's some union busting going on. Keep that in mind when you go to those stores. Keep that in mind. Really, if you want to shop union, of course, Giant and Safeway are still unionized. Those are really the only places if you're a labor person, if you want to do that. And just be mindful of down. And for those of you who have come by, and I love seeing that so many of y'all have taken the time to come by and see me on Mondays. Uh, just taking the time to think about what our waste does. Shores. There are some beaches where you see all the plastic bottles and all the plastic cans. That was something else, of course, those of you who remember being in elementary and middle and high school in the 90s, and those of you who remember teaching us, y'all were teaching us to cut those plastic rounds, and you had all those poor ducks and marine animals that were struggling with that. A lot of us now, there's a lot of studies, and I won't quote anything because this is something I'm exploring, but I will tell you, and actually, I'm going to post a link to the Ori Foundation. They're doing, they're working with waste, and they managed to get the OR Foundation. This is actually a news article link. This is a podcast. Yeah, this will be a good. I have not listened to this, but I have been keeping up with the work of this organization. So something else, if you want to listen to something, especially if you listen to all the episodes of my podcast, which is a good thing to listen to. listen to this and you can learn more about this link here. You can learn more about what's going on specifically in Accra, Ghana, what's happening in the shores, what's happening in their landfills. That many people aren't in Ghana. They're not sewing, like, of course, we love all those beautiful wax prints over there. They're processing a lot of the clothing that's coming from companies like H&M. And for those of you who might be joining me in the UK, I know it's well into the afternoon and the evening over there, but there's a company called Marks and Spencer. So those of you familiar with the UK may be more familiar with them, but we all know H&M, we all know Adidas, the Gap, Nike. Those are the brands that are showing up because now this organization, because they were able to get Shein to give them amount of money. Now, whether or not Shein is going to stop producing, that's another thing. They really need to just stop producing as much stuff as they are. Temu's the same way. You need to be mindful of when you're shopping over there. Now, when it comes to craft supplies, what I have noticed is like a lot of the craft supplies, even on Amazon, even on Temu, they're coming from the same place. But that's why it's good to have a good relationship with your local yarn store if possible. And if you need help and if you want to like evaluate craft supplies and nobody in your community is safe, just send me a message over at Chris Pattern. Just send it over there so that way I can kind of sort some of the things that are more focused to like actively sewing and doing craft versus things that questions that might be coming about gentrification, real estate, all those things. So yeah, this is something, listen to this as we kind of end our live for today. This is something you can listen to. I'm going to listen to it to kind of get to learn more about what's been going on, but they'll detail all the things that they're teaching folks to sew. They're helping people monetize. They're helping people in those markets in the big market that's there. The name is escaping me right now, but they talk about that in this. So it's a place, that's where that place is connected. And then of course I've got some wonderful podcast episodes coming up that I want to tease. Of course, I'm talking to some great people on the podcast about all kinds of things, including that wonderful Beyonce article that Jay Pitter talked about, she wrote, not just talked about, she wrote. Let me grab that link for you. But I will keep up this one. That's something I want to note. But I'll let my last link that I'm going to share with you today here on the live be this. And a email list, I'm going to send out a little bit, probably not right away, to make sure that you can have access to these links. Definitely make sure that you are subscribing to me on newsletter platforms. I'm going to share this link about Cowboy Carter, and then I'm going to share one more time my, actually, I'm just going to put up, if you can absolutely still subscribe. Now, I'm still working on getting those email addresses over to Substack. They still live in MailChimp. I am no longer actively using MailChimp. Substack's kind of my primary email list. Or WordPress now has capability you can subscribe directly on WordPress. They just built it in again. So, and let me, that's not the link I wanted, and I'm glad I didn't put it up on the screen. Let me, as promised, and since I definitely want to make sure I share out information with you, I may run just a little bit over the hour here, but we're wrapping up here. This is, again, ask Kristen anything about gentrification. This is my weekly live stream. If you have questions, comments, etc. But one of the other things I like to do in these lives is just share live resources, certain things that may have not made the cut to be our big hot topic of the week. Reminders, of course, just a live reminder to listen to my podcast. There's this wonderful little succulent over here that's actually real, and there's dirt in it. So once again, touching something natural here and getting joy out of it. Yes, it is Earth Day, the actual April 22nd Earth Day, Earth Month. Those of you know, it was 420 on Saturday. Won't get into more detail about that, but if you know, you know, especially those of you who are here in DC for the National Cannabis Festival. Also here in DC today, they are hearing arguments about whether or not it's okay to criminalize homelessness. And literally, this is an Eighth Amendment argument. They're arguing whether or not punishing homeless folks or people experiencing homelessness, that's people experiencing homelessness. Now, in the disabled community, it's okay to say disabled folks, but it's generally folks or people. people experiencing homelessness. They're arguing right now if it's okay for you to discriminate against those who are experiencing homelessness and jail them or fine them. That, yeah, this is the kind of country we're in. It's terrible. So, what can you do to help that? If you're in one of those organizations, now some of you all are not, you're watching me on the replay because you were down at the Supreme Court. You were at the rally this morning, and I commend you and I thank you for that. And thank you for speaking out. You've inspired me. I definitely will be more involved with what you all are doing. And one way to keep up with me, as always, of course, any of the social networks that you're watching this on, definitely keep watching me there. And then, yes, I'm going to put back onto the screen this week's Sunday essay, but I'm actually going to put the Substack link up. I got Substack here. I'm going to put the Substack link up because that is the best way. If you are like Kristen, I am missing emails. I would like to keep up with you. Those of you who are heavy duty LinkedIn users, use the LinkedIn version of this. That way it's already in your LinkedIn, just like you're here. Many of you are here on LinkedIn. Make it part of your LinkedIn environment. And then for those of you who are not LinkedIn folks, and that is perfectly okay, LinkedIn does what it does, and it's helpful for some, but it's not helpful for a lot of people. I'm going to put back up on the screen here. This is my Substack link. If you need to screenshot it, or if you just need to search, go over to, it's still the blackurbanist.substack.com. That's the easy way to remember it. It's still the Black Urbanist. It's not Defying Gentrification yet. And as I mentioned on last week's web stream, some things will be branded Defying Gentrification. Some things will still be kind of labeled the Black Urbanist. Everything is under the umbrella of Kristen Jeffers Media. So if I'm doing it, Kristen E. Jeffers, are doing it. It's under the banner of Kristen Jeffers Media, whether it's Chris Pattern with the yarn and fiber, and of course that's a totally different audience, so that's why that's kind of separately branded. Those of y'all who understand that understand. And we have spent a lot of time today, of course, talking about slow fashion and why that's a big priority for me. But one thing I will say to kind of tie that thread up, gotta love the pun, is that it's placemaking. It's malls are disappearing. And then for my generation, the mall was the site of buying things. And then we moved into the Walmart Target era. And then we moved into the Amazon era and the Temu and the Shein era. And a lot of these, and H&M, all these places, they're disposing of waste. And the waste is washing up on the shores of Ghana and Chile and in other countries that don't have the resources. And honestly, some of it's washing up here. You know, we used to see all the plastic bottles and stuff in many of our beaches. Plastic is everywhere. It's washing up. Break and listen to me talk about what's important, talk about Earth Day, listen to the podcast. Now, I know with the podcast, it's a little bit easier to pick up because that's like at all times it's on different platforms. But definitely look into, when you're on YouTube, you can go back and scroll all the resources. I'm about to send a letter out. So this is, if you want to get that recap, look for it in LinkedIn, Patreon, Substack, or on the blackurbanist.com website. It'll be labeled Ask Kristen Anything for April 22nd, 2024. And so your notes will be there. Next week, coming up later this week, of course, on Friday, episode 5 of our podcast, our first guest will be there. Derek Moore will be talking about Baltimore. We'll be talking about CDCs. We'll be talking about how we got into doing community economic development and communication. And Derek's also challenging me a little bit. You'll hear me get challenged on some prejudices that even I have. So I'm grateful for that. And then our hot topic coming up this week will be how the folks in Chinatown, DC have to be bused to a grocery store that they like, because not to say that I do want to platform that work and the reporter Amanda Michelle Gomez and others who worked on that story, because we still need local journalism in this town. We don't have enough of it, and we don't have enough of it anywhere. But I want to commend all of my local journalists and local journalism collectives and my funders, my Maynard Institute family. I'm very, very proud to be in the inaugural 200 and be creating these media products and changing the media landscape. I also want to give a shout out to Planet is In for naming me one of the 100 greatest living urbanists. I'm definitely going to be living worthy up to that plan with this Defying Gentrification podcast, as well as these Ask Kristen Anythings on Mondays, as well as my Sunday essay, where I'll be talking through like my process of slow fashion and making things, and of course some of the BTS that I talk about here a little bit. And yes, bring your questions next week. I'm happy to answer them. Email me those questions. And of course, if you have books, if you want to be on the podcast, I will be including a link for that. I have opened up May and June slots for those of you who are like, I want to be on the podcast, Kristen. I want to share with you what I'm doing. I've opened up slots for that. And also my original Calendly link is up and running. I'll put in my KristenEJeffers.com because I've done some updates over there as well. And of course, I got to give the room up again pretty soon. So I'm going to probably end this live in just a moment. This will be my absolute last link. KristenEJeffers.com. I think I need to update where my subscriptions are, where you can subscribe to me at. But that is the home place for all things me. And I am claiming that I'm doing this. And pretty soon I'll have some help. But for now, it's all me producing, streaming, everything. Of course, yeah, Les helps out here and there. And all of you all showing up and sharing this helps me out as well. I'm coming to you here live on Mondays to answer any questions you have about gentrification, especially as you're listening to my podcast, new podcast, Defying Gentrification. You're listening to those episodes, you're listening to the things that I'm sharing, or you see something that I've tweeted, or you've seen something I put on like Instagram or Facebook, or you've always wanted to ask me a question. One thing I will say, if you want me to show up, of course, you see this little thing here. This isn't a microphone. My microphone is actually over on the other side of the room, and thankfully it's picking up. I think you guys can hear me okay. If not, I will definitely move my microphone a little closer. Originally, I was more facing the windows, but the glare was just a little rough. Forgot to move the microphone today. But this is my air purifier. Do have these supplies, but I, like many of your chronically ill and disabled people that have mobility, that have the ability to do things, we still want to do things. And let's be mindful of that as we move into the world, just like we're going to be extra mindful as it is Earth Day. And so with that, I'm going to wrap up the feed. I'm going to wrap up the lives. I thank y'all so much for coming and joining me today. Once again, if you missed any part of this, go over on YouTube. YouTube will have all of the links in the comments immediately. Sign up for my newsletters. And you can scroll down in that Calendly link that says panels, keynotes, clarity calls. That is there. That is the free thing. If you want to book me if you know you want to sit with me and do a workshop, those links are paid links. And yes, that is one way to help me as I transition into just doing Kristen Jeffers Media full time. There's a lot of things I'm happy to consult with you with and talk with you with. But if you're going to be doing like a RFP project, or you got a keynote speech that you have a budget for, or if you want to bring the Defying Gentrification Fellowship class to your organization or school, the syllabi for that will be released. And in fact, if you get on today's email, I think I might have the information together and I might be able to preview that on our next email. Definitely will be in the next podcast update email. And then yes, podcasts are every Fridays. They're up at 12:01 a.m. Eastern for all time zones. So I know some of you all are Thursday night listeners. Thank y'all for that. Thank y'all for the magic of time. Some of y'all are Friday morning listeners because you're listening when you wake up. Thank y'all for that. And of course, you all, whatever time zones you're in, thank you all for listening to this. And with that, I'm going to end the stream. Take care of yourselves. And as I like to say, my little tagline now, do everything you can to defy and eradicate gentrification. Until next time, y'all, take it easy.